Well, the sky's already lighting up and it's not even sunrise. I'm Gulf Coast meteorologist Jason Dunning. Look at the lightning, and this has been the view of the morning from Fort Myers Beach. More rain, yes. Beautiful morning. We've got that too. So kind of a little bit of everything today. Classic rainy season setup. I just wanted to highlight one neighborhood there, Cape Coral. Over the last 24 hours, close to 4 inches of rain. A lot of that came from that big boomer that we saw that lasted late into the night. This is an area that meteorologists refer to as flash flood alley, just because of the way, you know, the lay of the land. So
the whole country.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, if you get a torrential downpour like this, it trains, as we say, basically stays over the same area, dumps just a tremendous amount of rain. It only has one place to go.
Hurricanes and tropical storms are much bigger than just a single point on the map. So instead of using the soccer ball, here's a better way to visualize a hurricane, and I've recruited a little help from Oasis South Summer Camp. And this parachute, yeah, that's more like it. This is the size of a hurricane. And then watch as we walk down the forecast cone. What I want you to see is look at how the edges of this big storm go well outside the cone. Once they're strapped in and take off, this is when the real work begins. Hurricane hunters can spend as much as 8 hours in the air as they head toward the core, the eye of the storm, collecting life-saving information.
Right now it's on a trajectory about like this, assuming we don't see any more wobbles or deviations in the track. And even, 10 to 20 miles can make a big difference in terms of impacts. But here's the takeaway. We are going to see storm surge here in Southwest Florida. We'll start with an update on the tropics and the big weather story heading into the 4th of July weekend. Rain chances for us, that will be the main impact regardless of tropical development. And right now you can see we have a lot of tropical air around. We've got this big tropical air mass, and that will start spreading into the Southwest Florida Gulf Coast tomorrow. And this is also something else we're tracking. This is what's going to help kind of spawn that area of low pressure that could develop tropically over the weekend. You can see that front now closer to Atlanta, but that'll drop into north central Florida, stalling out this weekend, and we could see an area of low pressure develop along that. That would be north of us. And you may have noticed over the last couple days, this whole region that the National Hurricane Center is highlighting has shifted more to the northeast. So I think there's a better chance, if we do see tropical development, for that to happen over the western Atlantic. Doesn't change for us the main impacts. So that will be more tropical moisture and higher rain chances for Southwest Florida. And you can see, by the way, those development odds up to 40% for the next 7 days. Our rain chances much higher than that. 60% today. Today's kind of a transition day, more typical rainy season weather. And then Thursday, Friday, Saturday will be the wettest. I've got rain chances up to around 70 to 80%. Right now in the Gulf Coast live radar, I'm tracking a thunderstorm over southern portions of Collier County, south of those of you in Naples, but you can see some of those lightning strikes. We've got 10 in the last 15 minutes, and this will gradually continue to build over toward Chokoloskee and Everglades City and around the Ochapi area. Up into Charlotte County, some rain that is in the process of fading away closer to Northport. So here's your Wednesday forecast. Look at it hour by hour here. Just some low rain chances through the morning with a few of those isolated showers and storms near the coast, and then we'll see more of a scattering of rain and some of those downpours by the afternoon and evening. Let's go through your latest futurecast together, and we're starting off with clouds and partial sunshine, and then here comes the rain again. We'll see inland rain and storms, and also watching for some showers and thunderstorms to build in from the Gulf later this afternoon into the evening. So it looks like a wet evening and at least the first part of the night before the rain starts to wind down, and then cranking up as we head into at least the 3rd of July, and also again for the 4th and into Saturday. We do have a Gulf Coast weather impact day starting tomorrow, just because of the widespread rain and that potential for a few areas of flooding just because of how soggy and saturated the ground is. Here's how things will play out for Thursday, and you can see rain becomes more widespread closer to midday. I think there's even a really good chance of rain in the morning. That wave of rain fades, and then we'll see more areas of rain and thunderstorms with a similar timing heading into the 4th of July. So morning, midday, afternoon rain. I'm not saying it's going to be a complete washout every single day. It's not going to be raining every hour, so there will be some dry time, and hopefully we'll be fortunate that by Friday night we get a little bit of a break in the rain before it starts to crank back up on Saturday. But you can see those weather impact days here, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, as we see that tropical moisture streaming in. It does not look like a big wind event for us, mainly just some rain. That is your Gulf Coast weather.
A living shoreline could be the key to protecting our coast. Instead of a concrete seawall, it's made up of native plants and materials.
NBC2 First Alert meteorologist Jason Dunning went to Cedar Key to see a living shoreline firsthand and how it adds an extra layer of protection during a storm.
About 250 miles up the Florida West Coast, this interesting-looking shoreline in Cedar Key tells a story of resilience. Like many neighboring areas along the Nature Coast, this small island community is bouncing back nearly 6 months after Hurricane Idalia, the strongest storm to hit Florida's Big Bend.
You had like a debris line that went like this.
Dr. Savannah Berry specializes in what's called a living shoreline. It's a greener, softer approach to protecting coastal areas from erosion.
This project has been hit by several tropical storms and outer bands of Hurricane Sally and Hurricane Michael, and it's really performed well.
Using native plants and natural materials, scientists are testing its effectiveness at reducing wave energy. Dr. Berry took us on a tour to see how the project fared after the island was inundated by Idalia last August.
So you can kind of see what it looked like before if you look on the other side of where our project ends.
Domes of oysters were used as the first line of defense, acting as a more natural barrier to break up waves. Scientists strategically planted cordgrass behind the oysters to serve as an added buffer. As Hurricane Idalia approached, researchers set up wave gauges to track the wave energy, comparing it with nearby gauges without the protection of a living shoreline. The result? A 15 to 20% reduction in wave energy.
So I think that gives people examples to lean on and helps build confidence in this approach.
Living shorelines have also been tested to protect structures from wave damage. This seawall right here was failing and had to be constantly repaired. So researchers installed more natural barriers like these grassy marshes to absorb some of the wave energy, and it worked.
Like a flat seawall, it just hits and smacks, and the seawall doesn't give at all. So that give and movement of the stems is part of what helps reduce wave energy.
A successful living shoreline is easier to maintain and expands naturally. It's happening here. Take a look at this project near the Sanibel Causeway. A partnership between the Sanibel Captiva Conservation Foundation and Lee County have made it possible. It reduces wave energy and provides a habitat for oysters. This image from 2005 is before installation. Today, it's much more established with a growing mangrove and oyster population. The increased mangroves likely decrease wave heights and prevented more damage to the Sanibel Harbor Resort during Hurricane Ian. At Rookery Bay in Collier County, this small living shoreline is lined with triangular prisms, made with natural materials and filled with shells.
There's very apparent signs of erosion, so we want to prevent all this sediment from washing there.
Living shorelines also create a great habitat for fish and other native species to thrive.
The more life in the area will bring sort of more life in the area, because the ocean and the reef is a noisy place if you listen to it.
The success of living shorelines is now making noise in the scientific community. The growing body of research shows its effectiveness at reducing erosion and even potential damage from storms. The only question is how much of your paradise are you willing to give up for the added layer of protection?
If you're trying to protect against very large storms, that's going to require much higher profile and much larger investments that are harder to construct and more disruptive to, your view, your ability to enjoy the coastline and the shoreline.
With tourism being such a big thing in Florida, we want to make sure that these environments are here to stay, so provides the economic benefit and, even the cultural benefits of us fishing over here, being able to enjoy that for years to come.
Meteorologist Jason Dunning, NBC2.
When a meteorologist talks about a cone during the hurricane season, you probably think of the forecast cone, or the cone of concern, the cone of uncertainty, or probability. However you know the cone, it's the most misunderstood, misused product from the National Hurricane Center. Let me show you why. Using these smaller cones, I've created something that resembles a hurricane forecast cone seen from above. So whenever there's a storm threatening, it's natural for people to say, okay, am I outside the cone or inside the cone? And sometimes people use this information to decide if they're going to take action before a storm. So it's really important to make sure you're interpreting the forecast cone correctly. I'll use this soccer ball right here to represent the center of the storm. It's like that dot or that swirling icon that you see on TV. Most of us probably assume the storm will move right down the middle of the cone. But that's not usually the way that it works. The soccer ball or storm can really go anywhere inside the forecast cone. It can go to the left, or it could go to the right, and roughly 1 out of 3 times a storm can even go outside of the forecast cone. The other thing to consider, hurricanes and tropical storms are much bigger than just a single point on the map. So instead of using the soccer ball, here's a better way to visualize a hurricane, and I've recruited a little help from Oasis South Summer Camp. And this parachute, yeah, that's more like it. This is the size of a hurricane. And then watch, as we walk down the forecast cone, what I want you to see is look at how the edges of this big storm go well outside the cone. And that just shows you that impacts, even if you're not inside the cone, can extend far beyond it. And that's why the National Hurricane Center is making big changes to the cone this year. Yes, the forecast cone is going to look a lot more colorful. Here's an example of the forecast cone graphic. This is what Hurricane Ian would have looked like. And you can see there's actually less emphasis on the cone, more on the watches and warnings. You can see the areas here in red. Those are hurricane warnings, and then hurricane watches and tropical storm warnings. So you're going to notice a lot more colors popping up to show where the impacts are going to be, not necessarily where the center of the storm is going to move. Let's talk about the